interpreters of the law are judges. And I continue and I quote, "They have no African-inspired ideological grounding. Some are confused by foreign belief systems. In America, these interpreters are called the House Negroes. It is what the father of Black history, Carter Woodson, strenuously complained about in his famous book, The Miseducation of the Negro. Woodson wrote, and Ms. Lindiwe Sisulu quotes, "If you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefit." I stop here for now and say, Ms. Sisulu quotes these words from this book to describe the interpreters of the law who are judges. And she continues in her article and says, and I quote, "When it comes to crucial economic issues and property matters, the same African causes up with their elitist colleagues to sing from the same hymn book, spouting the Roman Dutch law of property. But where is the indigenous law? It has been reduced to a footnote in your law schools. Where are the African value systems and customs of land, wealth, and property?" Today, in the high echelons of our judicial system, are these mentally colonized Africans who have settled with the worldview and mindset of those who have dispossessed their ancestors. They are only too happy to lick the spittle of those who falsely claim superiority. The lack of confidence that permeates their rulings against their own speaks very loudly, while others, secure in their agenda, clap behind closed doors. I pause here to emphasize that the reference in this article to the high echelons of our judicial system, where Ms. Sisulu says you are to find, in, I quote, "these mentally colonized Africans who have settled with the worldview and mindset of those who have dispossessed their ancestors," must include the Constitutional Court, the high echelons of our judicial system. She must be talking, among others, about the judges of the Constitutional Court who are Africans. I think she would also be including the judges of the Supreme Court of Appeal who are Africans. I think she also includes judges presidents of the various courts and all judges of the high courts of the various divisions of the high court. This is what Ms. Sisulu says about the African judges. She continues, and I quote, "There is a need for an overhaul of a justice system that does not work for Africa and Africans. If the law does not sufficiently address the issue of the food fight, the law will fail, and inevitably, it will play out in the streets. We have a neoliberal constitution with foreign inspiration, but who are the interpreters? And where is the African value system of this constitution and the rule of law? If the law does not work for Africans in Africa, what is the use of the rule of law?" Close quotes. I just want to say that we as the judiciary have never said that we should not be criticized. We do not say even now that we should not be criticized. We accept that we may be criticized, but we say criticism should be fair and should have a proper factual basis. But this is not criticism. It is an insult to the justices of the Constitutional Court, the judges of the Supreme Court of Appeal, the judges president of the various divisions of the High Court, and all the African judges who serve this country with distinction, with determination to uphold the Constitution. A very important aspect that arises when you read Ms. Sisulu's article, particularly the portions that I have quoted, which attack and insult African judges, is that it is rich in insult, but very poor in substantiation and in any analysis, because one, it does not refer to any judgments that judges of the Constitutional Court, judges of the Supreme Court of Appeal, and judges of the High Courts have given, which have been analyzed in order to produce the conclusions that she produces. There are no facts which are put up by Ms. Sisulu to support what she is saying. There is no analysis of anything. It's just accusations, insults, to the judiciary. This is most regrettable because this is not something that comes from some young person who is inexperienced and might not know what is expected. This comes from a senior member of the ruling party. It comes from a senior member of parliament. It comes from a senior member of the executive. As far as I'm aware, Ms. Sisulu has been in parliament since either 1994 or from sometime during the 90s. And she has been a member of the executive under different presidents over a long time. That's such a senior member who serves in two of the arms of the state, namely parliament and the executive, should see fit to insult the justices of the Constitutional Court, the judges of the Supreme Court of Appeal, and judges of the high courts, particularly African judges, because she focuses on them, is most regrettable. I would have expected at least that if she held the views that she holds here, she would at least have some facts to back up what she is saying. And I don't think she has those facts, because if she did have those facts, there is no reason why she would not have put them up, because then her allegations and opinions would be seen to be based on some facts. But here there are no facts based on some facts. It should not be acceptable in a constitutional democracy such as ours that a member of parliament and a member of the executive should wake up one morning without any facts, just write an article and insult all African judges from the highest court in the land, Supreme Court of Appeal, various divisions of the High Court, and specialist courts, everybody. It should not be acceptable. It is very important that in this country, we draw the line on conduct that is acceptable and conduct that is unacceptable. As I said, we as the judiciary do not say we should not be criticized. But criticism should have a proper basis. But as I said earlier, this is not criticism. This is an insult. Ms. Sisulu has insulted us. And we as the judiciary have done nothing other than doing our job. We take the oath that guides our work. We take that oath seriously. Ms. Sisulu might not like some of the decisions we make, but we take that oath seriously, and the judiciary will continue to do its work in accordance with the oath of office that we take. If some people don't like it, don't like the decisions we take in accordance with that oath, that is their problem. We will not change that. We will continue to perform our functions in accordance with our oath of office. If that brings about the kinds of insults that Ms. Sisulu has heaped on us, we will not change. We will still continue and do our job the way we are required to do it in accordance with our oath of office. I've looked at all the statements and sentences here that I've read. As I've said, there is no substantiation of any of this. There is no attempt to put up any facts to substantiate this. There is no attempt to refer to any judgments or anything that the judiciary has done which demonstrates what she's talking about. On Judiciary Day, one of the things I said was that I expect that as we move on, there will be more attacks on the judiciary, and that the judiciary must be ready for these attacks. It seems to me that hardly a month or about a month after Judiciary Day, Ms. Sisulu has launched a completely unwarranted attack on the judiciary and has heaped insults on the judiciary. We cannot tell the other arms of state, parliament, and the executive what to do when one of them does what Mr. Sisulu has done. It is up to them to decide what to do. But I want to say, I find this conduct on the part of a senior member of the ruling party, a senior member of parliament, a senior member of the executive, completely unacceptable. And it would be a pity if it was allowed to stand just like that. I want to say to my colleagues in the Constitutional Court, judges in the SCA, judges president, and the whole leadership of the judiciary, and all judges in our courts, particularly African judges who have been insulted by Ms. Sisulu, continue to do your work in accordance with your oath of office, no matter what. No amount of attacks or insults should sway you to making decisions in any manner other than in accordance with your oath of office. More attacks may be on their way against us, but we must continue to do our work in accordance with our constitution, and the people of South Africa are the ones who will judge us. Our judgments will speak for us, and other people in our country who appreciate the role of the judiciary and who appreciate the Constitution and the rule of law will play their role when to protect the judiciary against these types of attacks. The attack and the insults by Ms. Sisulu has no factual basis or justification whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Chief Justice. Colleagues, this is the opportunity for you to pose a few questions. As requested, please raise your hand and introduce yourself in full so that we can deal with the questions. Try to be brief. We don't have enough time. I think we've allocated 30 minutes. I have noted Mr. Sempier. I've noted Mr. Manyatela. I see Nokukhanya. I'm not sure which media house she represents, and Siavuya in that order.
Good afternoon, everyone, and apologies for the problem that that erupted a bit earlier on. Good afternoon, Acting Chief Justice as well. Just a quick one on the statement by the minister and your response to it. When the president appeared before the State Capture Commission of Inquiry and there was questions around the deployment committee of the ANC, the president made reference to the transformation of the judiciary. What's your understanding of what the president was speaking about when he spoke about the transformation of the judiciary? And then just a final one, the NPA issued a statement a bit earlier on. I don't know whether you have been informed or you know of special courts that are being set up to deal with state capture. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aldrin. Well, when the president spoke about transformation, I think he spoke about transformation as we have understood it over the years. It's transformation of the judiciary, not just of gender and race, but also in order to make sure that that women, for example, and Black judges get access to all kinds of branches of law to which they may not have been, they may not have had access before. That's what he's talking about. I don't think it has any connection at all with what Ms. Sisulu is saying. We must remember that in South Africa for the past, 27 years now, since '94, we have a system of appointment of judges which is very transparent. And the Judicial Service Commission has, among others, members of parliament who sit in that commission. It's got at least one member of the executive, the Minister of Justice. It's got some judges, and the members of parliament come from different political parties, and they include the NCOP and the National Assembly. And when they select candidates for appointment, one of the factors they have to take into account is ensuring that the judiciary is representative. So these various interest groups and political parties have a role to play in the appointment of judges, and they play that role. So I don't think that the president was talking about the same thing as Ms. Sisulu. And with regard to the NPA, I haven't seen much. I did see, I think, something along the lines that there's a special task team that they are putting together for purposes of prosecutions arising from the report of the commission, but I don't have much in terms of information as yet on that. I hope I answered both questions.
No, I just wanted to ask on the special courts.
Yes.
Because the statement makes reference to special courts on state capture. And as the head of the judiciary, I think you would or should know about that.
Well, I don't know as yet, but I think when they're talking about that, they would not be talking about the building of new physically building courts. They would probably be talking about arrangements that would be made in the various parts of the country with various divisions of the High Court or Magistrate Court to make sure that these cases are expedited. That's what I have in mind, but I haven't had anybody discuss that with me. But I think that probably that's what they have in mind, simply that they would talk to the relevant leadership of the judiciary at different levels to say, can we make special arrangements for these matters? I think that's what probably they have in mind.
Thank you, CJ.
Yes.
Mr. Manya.
Thank you, Nati. Good afternoon, Acting Chief Justice.
Good afternoon, Mr. Manyatela. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Clement here from 702.
Yes.
I think there's no doubt, Acting Chief Justice, for many people that this attack on the judiciary by the minister was unwarranted. But I would like to know, is this the appropriate way to respond as the Office of the Chief Justice? And I'm asking this because there are many people that have criticized the justices, that have criticized the judiciary, whether through press briefings, whether through opinion pieces, and there's still many others that are going to do so, that are even senior within the ANC or any other political party. I know in the past, the former Chief Justice Mogoeng, I remember attending a briefing in around 2015 where he had called a meeting with the then President Jacob Zuma because there were ministers and senior leaders of the ANC that were criticizing the judiciary unfairly without substantiating and giving the facts, as you have indicated with regards to this criticism by Minister Lindiwe Sisulu. Why have you decided as the Office of the Chief Justice to hold an entire briefing because one senior leader of the ANC has now decided to have the views that she has about the judiciary? Couldn't you have written to the president and say, let's sit down, I'm concerned about members of the executive, and then leave it to him to take whatever appropriate action? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manyatela. Well, one, the judiciary is independent, and we will deal with these matters independently of the executive. If and when we think there is a need for a discussion with the executive, that can be looked at. If you remember when, I think it may have been 2015 or 2016, when there was a meeting between the senior leaders of the judiciary and the president, then President Zuma, and some of the members of the executive, that occurred after there had been, as far as I recall, after there had been constant attacks on the judiciary, which had been going on. That was the context. In this case, there is this attack by Mr. Sisulu. You know, some of the criticisms that we get, we don't even respond to. We allow, either because we accept that maybe that may be fair criticism, or it doesn't really warrant us responding, or in some cases we respond because there's a special reason why we feel we should respond. In this case, the particular reason for responding is the insult, as opposed to even just the criticism, the insult. But in terms of meeting with the president and so on, that is something that we would decide at a certain stage. As I say, in 2015 or 2016, that meeting was called because there were continuing constant attacks on the judiciary. So for this one, I, at this stage, am happy that I deal with it in this way. What the executive or what the president is going to do, he will decide. As I say, we can't instruct him or instruct him what to do. We can't tell them what to do. We can't tell Parliament what to do when a senior member of Parliament behaves in this way. But we have a right to say this is completely unacceptable and it's an insult to judiciary and it should not be allowed to happen.
Thank you, Acting Chief Justice. Mr. Sempia, your hand is still up. I will request that colleagues please lower your hands when you're done. And secondly, the Acting Chief Justice is addressing the media today as the head of the judiciary, not as the chairperson of the State Capture Commission. So I would request that we don't conflate and confuse issues. He's addressing the issue relating to the article, and I would like us to focus on what he has said today or anything related to that too. Ms. Nokukhanya, and then Siyavuya.
Thanks, Nati. Hi, everyone. Nokukhanya Mtambo here from Jacaranda.
Hello, Nokukhanya.
Afternoon, ACJ. Just a few from me. In terms of engagement, have you had the opportunity to engage directly with Mrs. Sisulu on these utterances? I mean, it's all good and well to skip all the way to the president and hope that he takes some sort of action. But if she has the agency to write the letter, surely she has the agency as well to account for herself. My second one is, in the face of these continued attacks on the judiciary, what's your assessment of them? Do you think that it's the judiciary being pulled in as a pawn in political games, also taking into consideration and context? Sorry, Nati, I'm just going to draw this quick one. The last week's attack where the judiciary, the Concourt windows were smashed in. What exactly is going on here, and what's your assessment of these attacks? And then my last one, linking to the first one really, and about how the executive should deal with this conduct. What recourse are you then hoping for? Would you be satisfied with a simple apology on her utterances? If not, what recourse then are you hoping will come from this? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe let me start with the last one. At this stage, we hope that she would have the decency to withdraw the insult that she has held at the African judges. With regard to the attack on the Concord building last week, that matter is in court. I understand that there are investigations which are ongoing. It's a matter of grave concern to me. And I know that the Secretary General of the Office of the Chief Justice, as well as other stakeholders, particularly in the security cluster, are looking into the matter, because we need to make sure that measures are put in place to make sure that this doesn't happen again. With regard to whether I've engaged with Mrs. Sisulu, the answer is no, I have not engaged with her. She didn't engage with the judiciary before she wrote the article. So we are responding to what she has said. We find it completely unacceptable, and there is no plan to engage with her unless she wishes to engage with us and maybe explain herself or withdraw and apologize for what I see certainly as something completely unacceptable. I hope I've answered all the questions, but there may be one that I may have missed, but I hope I've answered them.
Thank you, ACJ. Mr. Siyavuya.
Hi, Nati, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, DCJ.
Hello,
Hi,
Siyavuya.
colleagues. Hi, DCJ. It's Siyavuya Mzansi here from the Cape Times.
Mm.
DCJ, I'm just curious about what your response to Minister Sisulu seeks to achieve. I think a point has been made by a colleague about whether this is the appropriate platform to raise this issue. So I'm curious, what do you seek to achieve with this kind of response when there have been a number of articles, some more than critical than what she has penned about the judiciary, and unfortunately, there's never been a response to this effect. So the long and short of my question is, what do you seek to achieve by this response? And the last question I want to pose to you is, in an election year, a fact that you are also well aware of, where campaigns will be flying in and out for the ruling party. Are you not entering uncharted waters? Are you not setting a precedent of entering uncharted waters where we know that there's going to be a lot of electioneering towards the ANC's elective conference in December, where remarks and some severe will be made about everything that exists in this country? Are you not entering uncharted waters by doing this, considering, what is to come in the next coming months? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Siyavuya. Well, firstly, we want to make it clear that this is unacceptable, what she has done. We hope that she can reflect on what she has done and withdraw. But that would be her decision. But it's important that we make it clear and go on record as to what we find completely unacceptable in terms of conduct by a senior member of both Parliament and the Executive. We don't always respond. You have said yourself that there are other cases where the judiciary has been criticized and we didn't respond. Yes, that is true. We would not be able to do our work if we responded to everything. We have to weigh and assess each and every one. And there are cases where we will not say anything when we are criticized. I have explained that. But for me, it is difficult for me to think of any occasion in the past when a senior member of both Parliament and the Executive insulted the judiciary in the way in which Ms. Sisulu has. My recollection is that this is probably the worst insult that has been leveled against the judiciary. And I leave out criticism. I say this is not just criticism, it is an insult. Well, in terms of this being an election year, by which I understand you to be referring to the fact that the ruling party will have its elections at the end of the year, we are comfortable to say where criticism is substantiated and criticism is fair, we won't be seeking to respond all the time. We'll reserve a response to certain situations where the judiciary is criticized completely unjustifiably, and certainly where it is insulted. So we have no problem with hearing that some people are not happy with the judiciary or they criticize, but there will come a time where we believe somebody has crossed the line. And in this case, I certainly think, Ms. Sisulu has crossed the line.
Thank you, ACJ. ACJ, we are going to take the last round. We've gone over the 30 minutes, but before we go to the last round, I have two written questions that I've received. One is from Dave Davis, and it reads as thus: does ACJ Zondo know whether Ms. Sisulu wrote the article herself, or was it someone else?
Let me respond to that quickly.
Yes.
The article has been out in the public for about 5 days from what I see. It purports to be written by her. She has not, as far as I know, come out and said it's not written by her. So we take it that she wrote the article.
The second question comes from Mr. Thabo Makwakwa of the Daily News. It reads as follows: is the DCJ not playing into a political gallery when it begins to respond to media political opinions by politicians or any other citizen of this country? Judge President Hlophe, during an interview with the Inside Factor, had also raised the fact that the judiciary needed to be transformed to speak to issues affecting Black Africans. He said that he would have transformed the judicial system had he been Chief Justice of the country. What does DCJ make of those remarks?
Well, let me start with the first one. No, I'm not playing into the political gallery. I made it quite clear that I'm responding to the insults directed at the judiciary. I'm not responding to any other thing that she may be talking about. That's what I'm concerned about. So other matters, political matters, I'm not going to go into those, but this one that relates to the judiciary, that's the one I'm dealing with. Well, I don't think it's necessary for me to say anything about what Judge President Hlophe may have said and what he may or may not have done if he was in whatever position. The fact of the matter is that as a head of court, as is the position with all heads of courts, one of the things we have been continuing to do is to advance transformation in the different courts. That process is ongoing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The second round, which hopefully would be the last, ACJ.
Yes.
I'm going to, Ms. Nokukhanya, please lower your hand. I'm going to take Ms. Maughan, Ms. Bates, Ms. Wicks. Those are the three hands that I see. I hope I haven't missed anyone else in that order for now. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
And lastly, sorry, Ms. Maughan, and lastly, Kyle Cowan. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, ACJ.
Hi,
First of all,
I
know your focus is very much on the judiciary, but you know, there were in that piece, there were also very strident attacks on the Constitution and a conflation of the Constitution with Jim Crow laws, apartheid laws, and the laws of the Nazis. There was also a question about the value of rule of law in South Africa.
Yes.
I would just be interested in your opinions on that. Secondly, the timing of this coming just, and I know you are here as the acting CJ, but coming just a few days after the inquiry had released that very far-reaching report, which makes, you know, very strong findings about endemic corruption under the ANC government in this country. Do you feel that there, you know, obviously Mr. Sisulu in responses to myself has denied that there was anything in the timing of it, but what do you make of it? And then finally, you yourself have experienced scenarios where a bullet was fired through the window of your, you know, the state capture inquiry's offices. You yourself have been targeted on social media. There have been threats. You have a number of bodyguards. when public officials come out in this way and essentially put a target on the back of Black judges as being tools of white masters, what does it do to, the constitutional democracy that so many people fought and died for? Thank you.
Thank you, Karyn. The courts are very fundamental to our constitutional democracy for many reasons. One of which is that the citizens and all people must know that when there are disputes, whether it's disputes among citizens, between citizens, or disputes between citizens and the government, they go to the courts. They take those disputes to the courts, and the courts would resolve them. For people to do that, they need to have confidence in the courts. They need to have confidence in the judiciary, that the judiciary would resolve their disputes in accordance with the Constitution and the law. So when an attack such as this, or insult such as this, that Ms. Sisulu has held on the judiciary are made, the question would arise: why should people bring their disputes to judges who fit this description that she gives? I don't know what answer she would give if somebody approached her and say, Ms. Sisulu, what do you say to people if they approach you as a member of parliament and as a senior member of cabinet and say, should we take our disputes to courts in the light of what you have said about the judges, particularly Black judges? It's difficult for me to think that she would be able to say, yes, I'm encouraging you to take those disputes to the courts which have those judges. And if she can't say that, what is she going to say? People will then say, well, we will resolve these disputes through violence. Is it tenable for a senior member of the executive and member of parliament to say these kinds of things about the judiciary in circumstances where she is under an obligation as a member of parliament and as a member of the executive to encourage the citizens and people to take their disputes to courts and not to resort to violence to resolve disputes? So by insulting the judiciary and Black judges in particular in this way, she is creating a situation where some citizens might well say, we are not taking our disputes to the courts. And in fact, they might have less respect for courts and their orders because she says these Black judges are basically puppets of their masters. It's completely unacceptable. She has questioned the rule of law. As a member of parliament, as a member of the executive, Ms. Sisulu has taken an oath to uphold the Constitution, to respect it, and to protect it. And part of our Constitution is the rule of law. She seems to question it. I don't know whether she is still prepared to uphold the Constitution, because upholding the Constitution and respecting it includes upholding the rule of law and respecting the rule of law. Thank you, Karyn.
Thank you, ACJ. Ms. Bates.
Thank you very much. Just a note, I prefer to go by Ms. Bates, but let's get into the questions, please. So Erin Bates here from Business Day. Afternoon, Acting Chief Justice.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. You've referred specifically in the beginnings of your address to Carter Woodson's term for slaves who worked in their oppressors' homes. Was it this specific insult, which I'm loath to quote, but is essentially Minister Sisulu calling judges house Negroes, what triggered today's speech? Secondly, you're speaking today as acting head of the judiciary. Was this address your decision alone, or did you consult with your peers in the Apex Court or the judiciary more broadly? Thirdly, you mentioned rising attacks on the judiciary and constitution, and you see this column as an example. Is your personal safety as the most senior judge at present at risk? Do you have evidence of this? And finally, are you worried and have you considered that today's address, I think you being the most bold you've ever been in public, could jeopardize your chances as becoming the permanent appointee of Chief Justice? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you say you prefer Miss Bates or Erin Bates?
I prefer Ms. over Miss.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let me start with the last one. As acting Chief Justice, I have certain responsibilities, and those responsibilities must be carried out. If carrying those responsibilities out means that I am reducing my chances of being appointed as Chief Justice, that's fine. I don't have to, I will never not do my job just because I want to be appointed as Chief Justice. So I have absolutely no doubt that this is what I needed to do. That's point number one. Point number two, I did consult with the heads of court as well as my colleagues on the Constitutional Court. The feeling was that this attack is totally unacceptable and that it should be addressed. I think you asked a number of questions, but I think I've responded to two. I didn't write all of them down, Erin.
Yes, thank you. ACJ, the other two were effectively the minister has, and I am wary of using this term because it is so loaded, but it is in the column. She's effectively called judges house Negroes. Was it this specific comment that really pushed you to speak today? Is that the nub of the kind of the grievance here, especially since we know that a former president, a cabinet member, and the head of cabinet has been very critical of the judiciary and actually sanctioned in an Apex Court judgment. So that's the first one. And the last one then is...
Maybe let me answer that one. Maybe let me answer that one.
Thank you.
Maybe let me answer that one. Well, put it this way, I took into account the entire article and sought to say what comes out of it. And that passage had its own role as well to play. But I took into account the entire article and said, what comes out of it when you have regard to this article in its totality? And I found it to be completely unacceptable and to cross the line. Thank you. The other one?
Thank you. Last and final one, I appreciate it. Is your personal safety at increased risk because you have noted increased attacks on the judiciary? And is there evidence of, to quote a colleague, a red mark on your back?
Look, at this stage, I am not aware of any increased risk as such, but I am keeping an eye.
And good afternoon. This is how we begin the show, The Full View tonight. That briefing by Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, scathing words that he has there for the Minister Lindiwe Sisulu. And this is at the back of that article that the Minister wrote. And one of the things that the Acting Chief Justice says is the fact that this is an insult to them as judges. Would have also seen a part of that particular column that the Minister has written not only talks about the Constitution, which she really questions, but also the strong words for judges and really some of which was repeated by some of our colleagues in the media in that particular briefing there, and the Chief Justice saying that for him it's not even about just that alone, and the fact that this is an election year when it comes to the ANC, as some have alluded to, but it is also to really just come out strongly against this, and they will reserve their right to respond to some of the allegations or attacks, as some have called them, in the public domain that are made against the judiciary. But we'll bring you some analysis, some brief analysis on that particular briefing. But let's